Welcome, welcome, welcome to Thursday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Thursday morning. Howdy, howdy, everybody. Astro, how's it going? All right. We certainly have a lot to cover, as always. Okay. Ooh. So I tried this new, well, not new, this different brand of soy milk. That's from Armor Ashanti. Thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate that. That's from I believe Kirkland. Not good. Not good. I like the other soy milk better. Yes, hey Thunder, how's it going? I did see something about that. So basically, that particular law is currently under. I want to say moratorium is the right term. while it gets figured out in court. So yes, that is true. Actually, we can just look it up. Oh, okay, I see. All right, it's okay. So a judge has blocked a Texas investigation of the parents of a transgender teen. That's what's happening. A Texas judge on Wednesday blocked the state from investigating the parents of a transgender teenager over gender confirmation treatments, but stopped short of preventing the state from looking into other reports. So this seems to me like just this this case only. District Judge Amy Clark Meacham issued a temporary order halting this investigation by the Department of Family and Protective Services into the parents of the 16-year-old girl. The parents sued the investigation. The parents sued over the investigation in Republican Governor Greg Abbott's orders last week that officials look into reports of such treatment as abuse. Yeah, so they didn't block the law itself. They are fighting this particular instance because it was brought forth by a case by the parents themselves. And, I mean, if they win, that could cascade other litigations. That's right. Amor. I said armor. Sorry about that. I really apologize. Amor Ashanti. Yeah. Oh no. Stop it. Go back. Okay. In case you want to follow up on that story. There we go. Quick follow-up on the international crisis that's happening in Eastern Europe with the Ukraine-Russia crisis, the war. Currently, supposedly, allegedly, there are serious ceasefire talks, apparently. Who knows what's going to come out of that? No idea. Meanwhile, there have been confirmed, at least through continuous reporting. In other words, they keep reporting the same thing. So as of right now, this is what we know. There have been thousands of casualties on both sides, and a lot of confirmed deaths on both sides. A lot of civilian deaths, hundreds, to my understanding, and the refugees leaving Ukraine have reached over 1 million. I know, right? Like that's such a weird thought process as to how that works. Almost seems like they just maybe, I don't know. It's very weird, champ. It's very weird, champ. Yeah, it could be, Tendera. It could be. Who knows? Who knows? It could just be like that, but maybe this will be productive. I don't suspect. I don't suspect that it is going to lead to 100% ceasefire, as the Russian, I think, defense minister or Ministry of Defense said that they're not gonna leave until they complete their objective. So that's yeah. But that was a couple days ago. I have no idea if that's gonna change. Who knows? Let's see if we got anything else here. Georgia, the country, has filed to join the EU. Una's got to be humiliated. I don't know if he has the capability of being humiliated. Oh man, he's just gonna keep going. He's just gonna keep going. I mean, from his perspective, there's no reason why he should stop, right? There's no reason. He's got the numbers, technically. He could do it the old school way of just throwing numbers at the problem until it gets solved. But conquering, I guess, or taking a country is not the same as holding one, as we should be very well aware that those are two different things. Who knows? Who knows? The desperation is what worries me. The continuous strangulation and pushing Russia into further desperation is what worries me. Especially if you've got Ukraine and Georgia attempting to fast track themselves into the EU. That could be seen as another act of aggression, and that could be seen as just more justification for what they're doing. In their eyes, of course. Joke's on you, he likes humiliation, maybe. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, political talks. It could just be that. Remember, Putin isn't exactly known for caring about his people. So it could very well be. It could very well be just that. What happened to the anti-abortion laws that were instituted? Are you talking about the laws that were instituted in a couple of states? I think they're being fought. There's several litigation or lawsuits, or lawsuits, I guess would be the word. There are several lawsuits that are ongoing right now that have yet to be settled. There's a big one. There's a big one in the Supreme Court that's going to be decided later down the road this year. Have you seen how the sanctions hurt Russian civilians? Yeah, that is so. That's the real tragedy. That's the real tragedy of this whole thing, because like They're the ones who are suffering. They never wanted this. They never wanted this in the first place. I seriously doubt that the majority of people in Russia were gearing up for war. And it's so sad to watch all the anti-war protests just get basically squashed by police, which, police gonna police. Yeah, it is all a tragedy. It is all a tragedy. I keep seeing videos of Russian soldiers who are saying we never asked for this. We never thought we were going to be here. We never wanted any of this. Oh, sorry. We saw a person from Russia in chat yesterday, and he was worried that we hated Russians. Yeah, the idea that anyone should be essential, that's so bizarre. I understand that we, especially if you have a personal tie to the conflict, but nonetheless, I mean, you can't essentialize a people when they had nothing to do with it. I saw a Facebook post or a meme, I guess, saying that stop, stop protesting local Russian businesses, the poor old babushka who's making piroshki is not the one who invaded Ukraine. Everybody chill out. No, the Russian citizens do not want this. At least from what I can tell. The overwhelming majority, based on the thousands and thousands who are protesting in several cities, they don't want this. He said he was against the war and didn't like or choose his government. Yeah, because, Putin, turns out he doesn't really like elections. He seems to either get rid of his opposition, lock them up, or finagle elections. So, yeah. It's just so sad because the average Russian citizen doesn't want any of this, and they're the ones who are really suffering. They're the ones who are really suffering. Do you think that the oligarch who just got his yacht seized is going to have any realistic problems? Do you think that the multi-billionaire who got his yacht seized, do you think that he's gonna wake up and be like, oh man, damn, my life is in ruins because I lost one of my 10 super yachts? Where's the proof that they don't want this war? Dude, have you seen the protests across Russia? St. Petersburg? Moscow? There are protests all over the place. There are protests all over the place. Hey, I like pie. How's it going? Well, you can't listen to the Russian media. The Russian media is designed to spread the propaganda of the state. Why would you tune into Russian media to follow up what they want? To follow up on what they're saying? Even the ones who support it, their consent is manufactured. Yeah, sure, you could say that. There are literally thousands of people. Look, this is just one tiny example. Here. This is just one tiny example. Yeah, they're getting violently locked up. Here. This is just one tiny example that you can look up. And it's throughout all of Russia. Look at this. This is in St. Petersburg. They're literally dragging... This is the Russian police dragging away an elderly woman. Look at that. The entire street is filled with anti-war protests. So, yeah. Did the Russians want the war? No. The Russian people know. The Russian people do not want this. Nobody wants this. There is a minority of people who are nationalistic or Nazis, but it doesn't mean the whole population. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there's some people that you can find and put on TV and put on the media to see, like, the, you know, you can find people who are of the belief that what Russia is doing is correct and throw them on the media and say, look, this is what's going on. But when it's not really the case. Does Putin want to mark history, be it good or bad history when he dies? I have no idea what his... I have no idea. I have no idea. Right, doesn't mean all the citizens should be demonized or deserve war. Right, like, exactly. That's the TLDR of it. You can't essentialize a people based on the decisions that their government made, which in this case, not even all of the people support the government to begin with. So you can't blame the Russian citizens who are suffering right now because of the brutal sanctions. You can't blame them for what's happening. Russian state propaganda is very intense, especially older people listen to it and are influenced it, but younger people read a lot more media outside of it. Yeah, I mean, one thing that the Russians do is very, very good propaganda. Now that is their strong point. Yes, that's right. Tucker Carlson, Trump, and the right. Well, definitely the more extreme right, the more extreme factions at the right are backing Putin because they like the authoritarians. I mean, we literally saw a video of the America First conference. The America First conference where Nick Fuentes, a known neo-Nazi, introduced an elected member of Congress right after there was a bunch of chants for Putin. The Russian state just shut down their last remaining critical radio station? Jesus. Was that like on purpose to shut down any information? Or is it because they can't hold the infrastructure? Yes, RT and Sputnik are gone from social media. Well, from Twitter anyways. They're banned from Twitter. They're banned from Twitter. I think on YouTube, this is incorrect. I think on YouTube, they've just been demonetized. I don't think they've been taken out. I think that they've been demonetized, not taken out. You know, we could just fact check this. It takes 5 seconds. Good morning from Monterey. Howdy, howdy. No media in Russia are allowed to present anything outside of the very strict state propaganda war. They aren't allowed to call it a war. What? That's wild. And the radio station apparently didn't comply well enough for the state, so they shut it down. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's definitely... They're definitely still on YouTube. They're just demonetized from what I understand. Russia Today. Yeah, it's right here. The media who doesn't comply are threatened with fines in the millions, and journalists can't get years of prison. Yikes. Yeah, they're still here. Settlement in Luhansk People's Republic liberated. That's a good meme. Russian operation in Ukraine, day 8. Okay. These are good memes. Yeah, they keep calling it a special operation. Right. Yeah, special operation. It's a good meme. The Serge Lavrov news conference as Russia wants NATO out of Europe. What? That's a non-starter. Even the Russians have to know that kind of double talk from the Soviet days, that's kind of subterfuge. Maybe. Or maybe they're just used to it. I have no idea. But it seems to me like the sentiment is very, very much against this. Very much against the war. At least if you really talk to the average person there. I understand Russia wants NATO out of Europe, but that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. I'm Dutch. I know NATO is a safety me. We're small and can't defend ourselves. We contribute to a defense, but NATO keeps everyone else out of our country per Article 5. Yeah, I mean, like, I understand that NATO was supposed to be originally a mutual defense kind of thing from the old Soviet, from the old Soviet days. But NATO exists exactly because of Russia and this heinous attack. Certainly this re-legitimized this, and of course, we also can levy criticisms at the actions and false promises that NATO has done as well. Are we going to look at that January 6th article? Yes. All right, folks, we first got to head into this one. So this one is a content warning. Self Roblox content warning for all of you folks here. Content warning. This is a self Roblox or alluding to self Roblox. And by the way, NATO dragged their feet on Ukraine exactly because they didn't want to step on Putin's food. Now we see this was for nothing. They should have accepted Ukraine into NATO. But the problem with that is it would have accelerated the timeline for conflict, because then that definitely would have put it would have further legitimized the attack. Because then Putin is correct. NATO is expanding on his borders. Russia wouldn't have attacked the whole of NATO. Maybe. When you've got somebody cornered, from their perspective, I think a neutral diplomatic solution from the beginning, this was years ago, I don't know if we can achieve that, but from years ago, a neutral diplomatic solution when it comes to Ukraine should have been forced as much as humanly possible. I thought it was supposed to help people, not just the US. Well, NATO can't do anything right now because, well, it's not within their purview. And furthermore, I think they are helping with what they can in terms of like humanitarian aid, and they're also supplying or giving open borders to supply Ukraine. So they are doing something, they just can't, obviously, for obvious reasons, they can't put boots on the ground or anything of the sort, unless we all want to accelerate a nuclear holocaust. Putin just triggered the exact opposite of what he wanted. He thought Europe wouldn't be able to unite. Maybe that's what he was counting on. I have no idea. I have no idea what was going on through his head when he thought that this was going to end well for him. Alright, folks. Once again, content warning, content warning, content warning. I think it's nuclear war if NATO does anything. Yeah, exactly. Like, we can't... Yeah. Hindsight is 2020. Yeah, I mean, we can all sit here and say, like, X, Y, and Z should have happened, but... Russia has for the last 10 years done everything to break protection set up after the Cold War. Several weapons security agreements between the US and Russia were broken, not extended, or violated mostly by Russia and the US. Neither have put any effort into establishing new security agreements, but the war isn't new. It's been in the works for decades. Yeah. I do agree that, the West obviously has their their share of responsibility as well. All right, folks, content warning, content warning, content warning, content warning, content warning. You've been warned of content.
Okay, so that is what he had to say on Ukraine. Then he got into the bad part of his speech. Okay, that was the best part of his speech. Then he got into the bad part. So he started... Okay, so that is what he had to say on Ukraine. Then he got into the bad part of his speech. Okay, that was the best part of his speech. Then he got into the bad part. So he started talking about the pandemic. And this is where the lies begin. Because when you're the president of the United States and you've had the worst 14 months of any president of the United States ever,
that's just
Abraham
categorically
Lincoln had a
false.
full-scale insurrection.
That is categorically false. That is categorically false. Like, just from any perspective. Yes, 14 months have been absolutely worse than an entire civil war. What an absolute clown. Hey, Maple Leaf Dragon. Yeah, it's about to get even worse. It's about to get even worse. So, content warning. Once again, content warning.
On his hands in the beginning of his administration, that wasn't caused by Abraham Lincoln. Everything bad that has happened over the last 14 months is a completely self-inflicted wound. Joe Biden is the Kurt Cobain of politics. He put a shotgun in the mouth of the American body politic and then pulled the trigger. And the brains are on the wall. Okay, the president of the United States is really, really bad at this. And because he is so bad at this,
did y'all hear that? Jesus Christ. What an absolute psychopath. Where is this guy's mindset that this is where he felt he needed to go? I think this week leads to EU being more of a defense alliance, maybe. I heard it, but what did it even say? Is the metaphor supposed to mean? I have no idea what the implications are behind it. But the fact that that's where his mind... He's basically saying, like, President Biden has, like, effectively Robloxed themselves politically, I think. And, of course, the one thing that he can point to in terms of making a metaphor is Kurt Cobain.
Because he is so bad at this, he has to just lie to you. He has to explain to you, actually, everything is fine. Everything is perfectly good. Not only that, we've done an incredible job. So the president starts talking about COVID-19. Here we go. Really bad at this. And because he is so bad at this, he has to just lie to you. He put a shotgun in the mouth of the American body politic and then pulled the trigger. And the brains are on the wall. Okay, this is... The president of the United States is...
Like, he just used, like, Kurt Cobain's, like, self-Roblox to try to make a point. What an absolute psychopath. Like, my dude, if you don't like Joe Biden and you think that his policies are bad or his policies are not good for the country or whatever, just say that. Does Ben even know what body politics means? I have no idea. The implication is that he's self-destructing the country. What a Weasley little liar. Yeah, no, I mean, that's just like par for the course for Ben Shapiro to lie all the time. But it's the mindset that where his brain goes to is to use the self-Roblox of Kurt Cobain to make this point. What an absolute disgusting human being. That's what really triggered me, to be honest. Like, where are you mentally that this is the metaphor that you need to use? I criticize Joe Biden quite often in this channel. I've said that a lot of his policies are just going in the wrong direction. A lot of his policies, a lot of his promises failed to materialize. But I've never felt the need to go and dig up a metaphor of using self-Robloxing to make a point when I have a disagreement. Absolute disgusting human being. And by the way, this is the right wing's intelligentsia, the cool kids philosopher. One of the, if not the most popular figure, conservative figure on a lot of social media platforms. This is it. This is the peak. Or I should say the bottom, the pit. I wonder if Russia, and ponder this, Russia and Ukraine are major grain exporters to feed the world. Imagine Russia controlling all of that. Well, there are concerns. That the folks who depend a lot on grain, who are already experiencing food insecurity, are going to be just devastated because of this conflict. Yes. The most popular political commentator in the world, truthfully, probably, or at least for sure, quite up there. At least for sure. At least for sure, he's definitely up there. The Daily Wire apparatus, the Daily Wire propaganda apparatus is pretty big. It's pretty big. It consistently breaks top 10 on basically almost any social media you can think of when it comes to politics. I'm almost scared to look at the comments. Anyways. Yeah, this is the pride and joy of the right. Well, that's a good point. Shapiro's audience is not the subscriber base, it's the billionaires he's flating on camera right now that fund the Daily Wire. Yeah, I think one of the biggest funders is the Koch brothers, right? Or the Koch Industries is one of like the big ones. Is the Daily Wire ultra right wing? Yeah, it is. It's a palatable alt-right reactionary news outlet. Yeah, I mean, when you're platforming people like Candace Owens talking about how George Soros and the globalists are attempting to manipulate all aspects of media, of media and government. I mean, how palatable, how close do you need to be? How close do you need to be when you're talking about like George Soros and the globalist agenda? Yeah. Yeah, it's the gateway drug to QAnon and ultra-right wing. Yeah, I mean, like I said, you got Candace Owens up there talking about basically, for all intents and purposes, the JQ. Speaking of far-right crazies, film claims it has videos of mules stuffing ballot boxes in the 2020 election. We're still here, folks. It's March of 2022. After Joe Biden beat Donald Trump to become the nation's 46th president, Department of Homeland Security declared that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. But conservative filmmaker Dinesh D'Souza is likely to set off a new firestorm with a documentary video he said it was obtained through open records requests that allegedly show mules stuffing ballot boxes. D'Souza tells Newsweek that his point isn't to convince moviegoers that the presidential election that Joe Biden won and Donald Trump lost ought to be overturned, only that the reflexive claim that there were no major irregularities is untrue. Right. I'm not saying that we should continue to shake the foundation, the democratic foundations that still remain, whatever semblance of that may be. I'm not saying you should continue to shake that. I'm just asking questions. The movie is made in conjunction with True the Vote, a Texas organization that bills itself as an anti-voter fraud group. Yeah. There's no way to know who the votes were cast for, but what we do know is the claim that the 2020 was the most secure election is false. Okay. Literally everyone else disagrees with you, but okay. And furthermore, wouldn't that change the calculus if the majority of these alleged votes were for Trump? Mules are described in the movie as paid or unpaid operatives who in 2020 put ballots in multiple drop boxes that have been set up to make it more convenient for the voters in the midst of the COVID pandemic. Many entities have debunked the notion of widespread fraud, including an Associated Press investigation last year that found only 475 potential instances of cheating. Also, a New York Times project where reporters spoke to election officials in every state concluded last year that there was no evidence that fraud played a role in the outcome of the presidential race. Right. A USA Today investigation in late 2020 concluded that accusations of wrongdoing were unfounded or overblown. The Brennan Center of Justice noted that the nation's top intelligence and law enforcement agencies called the 2020 election secure. And the list goes on. Literally every single person disagrees with you. These are just delusions of grandeur that Dinesh D'Souza is attempting to, or maybe he's just trying to, grift. Maybe he's just trying to grift. It's hard to tell nowadays. But D'Souza says he and Truth Vote have sifted through 4 million minutes of video and identified at least 2,000 mules. One in Georgia dropped ballots in 27 boxes in different counties. Okay. D'Souza's film, appropriately enough, is dubbed 2,000 Mules, and D'Souza had recently dropped its trailer online, not at Facebook or YouTube, because those are bogus platforms that classify misinformation, things they merely disagree with. But at Rumble, a Canadian-based video service that struck a partnership with Trump Media and Technology Group, this one mule made 53 trips to 20 drop boxes. As in the trailer, as video of alleged ballot stuffer rolls, the trailer shows others the movie claims are mules, some wearing COVID masks, some are not, though many are likely easily identifiable. D'Souza says he will attempt to interview them prior to the film's release. Wait, so how do you know this? Yeah, but that's not really a conspiracy. Maple Leaf Dragon, that's not really that much of a conspiracy. They just kind of take it to the next step and then use euphemisms like globalist to just mean, Jewish people. D'Souza claims the video in his film is all concrete and documentable evidence. I wonder where all of that documented concrete evidence was at the almost 70 court cases. I wonder where all that was. That's kind of weird. The trailer also alludes to geospatial and telemetric data, which Engelbrecht claims that is the heart and soul of the effort to identify suspected mules. Geospatial technology tracks cell phones to precise locations and have been used to capture terrorists, but mostly, trillions of data points are gathered by marketers who sell the information to anyone who's willing to pay for it, usually companies targeting consumers with ads or coupons based on locations they frequent. The Times tracked visitors to Playboy mansions and the estate of celebrities such as Johnny Depp, Tiger Woods, Arnold Schwarzenegger to prove how simple it was to do so. Engelbrecht said her group spent $1 million to obtain geospatial information from several marketing services that she agreed not to name, and $20,000 to obtain video via open records requests to counties and cities in 5 states where it appeared Trump was winning until mail-in and drop boxes were counted. As we know, the reasons why this happened is because Trump, for months before the election, was continuing to perpetuate this false notion that there was going to be a problem with the mail-in ballots and whatnot, which discouraged a lot of Republican voters from using these drop boxes or mail-in ballots, which, of course, it makes sense that a good chunk of folks who are Republican or who were going to vote for Trump went in person, and then all of those ballots that were coming in at the end were from the folks who obviously voted overwhelmingly Democratic because they voted by mail. This is not a hard concept to understand. Even before the election, we already knew that was going to be the case. The geospatial data was the driver, Engelbrecht said. She also said that we'll be turning over time and date stamp video that shows the same people inserting ballots into sometimes dozens of different drop boxes to various law enforcement officials. Yeah, so do it. If you've got such hard, concrete evidence, do it. Better yet, why not bring it to court? Since you're so confident. The federal government's Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency dictates that the video camera should be trained on ballot boxes, but Engelbrecht said that some areas pointed to cameras in random directions, entirely missing all activity near the boxes. Okay, citation needed. In other cases, officials claimed that there was no video to share, even though the law dictates that federal election materials to be held and available for review for 22 months. Engelbrecht said some officials complied with their open records request fully, but others either partially or not at all. Officials in Fulton County, Georgia, told Newsweek that True the Vote paid $2,330.08 for 2 batches of video, one picked up in May last year and another a month later. In Arizona, officials in Yuma County did not supply video, but Maricopa County officials did. Detroit officials were unsure that whether they had footage True the Vote sought, according to Engelbrecht, so efforts to obtain the video from the city that have been unsuccessful so far. Philadelphia has denied open records requests, claiming its video is part of an ongoing investigation, according to an email forwarded by Engelbrecht. An official with Milwaukee said the city offered the True the Vote 900 pages of detailed chain of custody records for its shop boxes, but withheld 15,120 hours of video footage because it didn't deem that the 22-month retention requirement applied to it, or that the video would be subject to a public records request. Newsweek reached out to Milwaukee officials to determine whether that video still exists. They declined to specify, only saying that we maintain and continue to retain all chain of custody records for drop box retrieval and transportation. Hold on, folks. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, folks. I have the latest Trump press release suggesting that Republicans should boycott future elections in protest of the theft. Oh, pretty please. Yeah, true. That's what they should do. I've said it before. That's what they should do. If they feel so inclined or so adamant about that, then they should boycott it. Newsweek confirmed that election officials did not review the video before sending it to True the Vote. Wait. Why wouldn't you send it to the one place that should have all of this concrete evidence? Newsweek reached out to officials in Yuma County, Detroit, and Philadelphia, where True the Vote was unsuccessful in its attempt to obtain video and did not immediately hear back. Newsweek also sent the film's trailer to Secretaries of State of Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, alerting them of the possibility of video from their states might be used in the film. Harry Schaefer, Director of Communications for Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, confirmed that the trailer and claims made by the upcoming film are under investigation. This story will be updated should others reply. Nice. D'Souza is often dubbed the Michael of the right, given that the $33.4 million box office haul from his first film, Obama's America, was more than any other political documentary, except for Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. D'Souza's next 3 films also fared well compared to others in the category, though his most recent release, Trump Card, available on streaming and DVD, did not get a theatrical release because of the pandemic. D'Souza said he may have several high-profile premieres in various parts of the country for 2,000 meals that he and other conservative celebrities would attend. Insiders say that it will also be available on streaming via Salem Media, the conservative talk radio giant that entered the movie distribution industry 2 years ago, but it's unclear as to whether this will get a wide theatrical release as the first 3 films. Yeah. Giga cringe. Giga cringe. Alright folks, on to actual important information here. The January 6th committee said Trump violated multiple laws in effort to overturn election. Damn. Wow. Surprise Pikachu face. The January a known con man. Wow. A January 6th committee says its evidence has shown that then President Trump and his campaign tried to illegally obstruct Congress's counting of electoral votes and engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States. True. In a major release of its finding filed in federal court late Wednesday, the committee suggested that its evidence supported findings that Trump himself violated multiple laws by attempting to prevent Congress from certifying his defeat. The select committee also has a good faith basis for concluding that the president and members of his campaign engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the United States. The committee wrote in a filing submitted in the U.S. District Court of Central District of California, characterizing excerpts from nearly a dozen depositions from top aides to Trump and former Vice President himself, Mike Pence. The committee described a president who had been informed repeatedly that he had lost the election and that his claims of fraud were unfounded, only to reject them and continue to mislead the American public, till this day. He then pushed top advisors for continuing to strategize ways to overturn the election results. The panel released its findings as part of a legal push to force John Eastman, an attorney who was a key driver of Trump's strategy to subvert the 2020 election, to produce crucial emails tying together elements of the scheme they described. In 16 accompanying exhibits, the panel showcased testimony it received from key figures in the Trump world, including campaign advisor Jason Miller, White House communications aide Bren Williamson, Pence National Security Advisor Keith Kellogg, Pence counsel Greg Jacob, Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short, Top Justice Department officials who also provided crucial testimony revealed by the panel on Wednesday night, including Acting Attorney General Jeff Rosen and his top advisor Richard Donahue. A deposition of Eastman himself reveals that the Trump ally invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination nearly 150 times in declining to answer the committee's question. That's weird. Other documents include a page from Trump's private January 6th schedule released to the January 6th committee by the National Archives in recent weeks. The schedule includes 11:20 a.m. call with Pence as well as a call with then Senator Kelly Loeffler. Although evidence offers insight into the contours of what is likely to be the committee's final report, it is only a small window into the 650-plus interviews that the panel has conducted. Jesus. The committee suggests that Trump and some of his allies may have committed 3 distinct crimes: obstruction of an official proceeding, in this case the January 6th session to count electoral votes, defrauding the U.S. by interfering with the election certification, and spreading false information about the results, and a violation of the District of Columbia's common fraud law. Wow, a fraudster? No way. Aides to Trump did not respond to a request for comment, but Charles Berman, Eastman's attorney, offered a following response. Like all attorneys, Dr. John Eastman has a responsibility to protect client confidences, even at a great personal risk and expense. The Select Committee has responded to Dr. Eastman's effort to discharge this responsibility by accusing him of criminal activity. This is because this is a civil matter, and Dr. Eastman will not have the benefit of the constitutional protections normally afforded to those accused by their government of criminal conduct. Nonetheless, we look forward to responding in due course. To prove Trump committed felony obstruction, investigators would have to show he corruptly intended to impede an official proceeding, and the committee says his work with Eastman to pressure Pence to take legal acts could satisfy that requirement, particularly as Trump continued to spread the claims of fraud that his own allies said were unfounded. Yeah. I just read that headline and my brain came up with it. Rain last night and the sidewalk got wet. Yeah. Of course. I mean, yeah. In other breaking news, the sky is indeed blue. Grass is also green. And a con man is a con man. Is creating a giant con. No way. Determining whether Trump violated criminal law on January 6th is a complex undertaking, though the panel's findings may drive up pressure on the Justice Department to review its own thinking on the matter. Prosecutors have charged hundreds of Trump supporters who breached the Capitol with seeking to obstruct Congress's efforts to count the electoral votes, but applying that law to the former president presents a trickier calculus. The panel says it has evidence to support an inference that Trump knew he had lost the election. Miller described a blunt conversation with Trump in which campaign aides told him he had lost, but the president nevertheless sought to use the vice president to manipulate the results in his favor. Yeah, among other things. He also, the Trump campaign, I should say, also allegedly attempted to shoehorn fake electors, which of course were rightfully discarded, but nonetheless. Mueller told the committee that campaign aide Matt Oskowski told Trump in the Oval Office that he was going to lose, citing state and county and state level results that were being reported, but Miller said Trump refused to accept their assessment. Yeah, so this is repeated evidence to basically paint the picture that he was told multiple times that, listen, it's GG, all right? It's done. It's GG. And he refused till this day, March of 2022. He believed that Matt was not looking at the prospect of legal challenges going our way. Miller told the panel, and Matt was looking at purely from what those numbers were showing as opposed to broader things that include legality and election integrity issues, which as a data guy he may not have been monitoring. The bulk of the committee's legal findings focused on reconstructing Eastman's efforts to justify ordering Pence to overturn the election single-handedly when he presided over Congress's electoral voting count during the session of January 6th of 2021. Eastman, however, didn't relent even after a violent mob egged on by Trump stormed the Capitol and sent Pence and Congress fleeing for safety. Eastman continued to press Pence to overturn the election. Thanks to your BS, we are now under siege, Jacob, Pence's counsel, emailed Eastman along with lengthy refutation of his argument. Yeah, so these folks knew. These folks had absolutely... these folks were absolutely in contact. I think it's pronounced Oshkowski, maybe. What is GG? Good game? In other words, that's it. It's game over. The siege is because you and your boss did not do what's necessary to allow this to be aired in a public way so the American people can see for themselves what happened. So they tried to flip it back. Jacob subsequently apologized for his language, attributing it to the stress of being moved to a safe location while his wife and 3 children were watching the news, and he was fearing for his safety. Even after this exchange, Eastman made one final plea to convince Pence to stop the counting of electoral votes, acknowledging it would amount to a relatively minor violation of the federal law. What? Yeah. Hey, can you just do a quick small violation of federal law? It's just a small one. It's okay. Can you do us a solid, Pence? Can you do us a small solid and violate federal law? Just a minor one though. Jesus Christ. Plaintiff knew what he was proposing would violate the law, but he nonetheless urged the president to take those actions. Yeah. Chair Benny Thompson and Vice Chair Liz Cheney said in a statement later Wednesday that their fact-finding strongly suggested that Dr. Eastman's emails may show that he helped Trump advance a corrupt scheme to obstruct the counting of electoral college ballots and a conspiracy to impede the transfer of power. I mean, like, that's basically it. That's the TLDR. And, like, the reality is, or I should say the bigger takeaway, if we zoom out, is to show the weakness of the Electoral College, the fragility of the Electoral College. Imagine attempting to overturn an election through a dubious and misunderstanding of how the process actually works, because it was doomed to fail. But nonetheless, the fact that there is a possibility of someone who got really big mad that they lost an election, the fact that there's a possibility that they can shoehorn fake electors, that they can attempt to stall the counting of electoral college votes by attempting to strong-arm the vice president, which he can't do that, but, it didn't stop them from trying to get the vice president to stop the count of the electoral votes, despite the actual physical overall popular vote was pretty much clear that he's not going to win. It just really exposes the fragility of the Electoral College. This is a lot harder to do if you would have just had popular vote. This scheme, this alleged scheme, is a lot harder to pull with the popular vote. I mean, you can't shoehorn 10 million 10 million magical voters to sway an election. Much easier to capture state Secretary of States who do have the power to reject election results or to change out electors, from what I understand. I guess it depends. That is a lot easier to do. I appreciate that, Dr. Dragon Rider. I'm not sure. Possibly. I mean, wouldn't surprise me. The TLDR is that this just shows the fragility of the Electoral College and just how undemocratic it really is. Yes, okay, that makes sense. Yes, the 3/5 compromise. Okay, that makes sense. Yes. without the electoral colleges and wanted to the rich and privileged, helpless right wing. True. Was the affirmative action for the right? Damn. Maybe you should just win elections, dude. Put better candidates. Have some personal responsibility as to why you lost. Yeah, so TLDR, that's the big picture, right? Because, like, this would not be a thing. This wouldn't be a thing if we had just popular vote. That's right. This part really gets me. This part really gets me. Can you just make a small violation of a federal law? Can you just do a small felony? Minor felony. It's okay. It's okay, Pence. Jesus, these people. I appreciate that. Oh, man. Alright, so continuing our journey through the entirety of the January 6th, I told you folks that we would be covering any updates that happen as the investigations continue. So here we are. Oath Keepers first to plead guilty to seditious conspiracy and will cooperate with prosecutors. Nice. Look at these ads. Why am I getting laser surgery, laser hair removal ads? Okay. Joshua James, ADT ads are always the charm of the channel, right? Nah, it's just gonna take me to like a surgery center, probably. Like a consultation to get laser hair removal. I just don't understand. Like, where are these ads coming from? It is the most bizarre thing. Maybe because I never click on anything. Maybe because I never click on anything, they're just throwing whatever ads at that point and see which one sticks. To maybe see if they can find like a pattern of something that I might actually go for. But because I never actually click on any ads, they're just gonna keep shilling whatever until I click on something. The reason they say these things like that out in the open is because they know elected officials never get criminally punished. Yeah, that's a good point. Isn't that ad for guys? No, this ad is for... Well, it doesn't say. It just says 70% off laser hair removal and more. Okay. And here I got luggage. I'm being sold luggage. Oh no, it's travel. And here I'm being sold flooring. Okay. Totally makes sense. Anywho. Joshua James of Arab, Alabama, pleaded guilty to seditious conspiracy charges on Wednesday as part of a deal with prosecutors contingent on his cooperation with the U.S. government in their ongoing prosecution of defendants who were involved in the January 6th attack. The plea deal is the first of its kind for a January 6th defendant and comes nearly a year after James was charged with impeding and obstructing Congress's affirmation of the Electoral College vote in the 2020 presidential election. James pleaded guilty before the court to one count of seditious conspiracy and one count of obstructing an official proceeding in exchange for a reduced offense level, which the judge will consider at sentencing. The plea agreement directly implicates the Oath Keepers founder and militia leader, Stuart Rhodes, among others, in a conspiratorial plot to stop the transfer of power ahead of President Joe Biden's inauguration, with Rhodes predicting bloody and a desperate fight. Yeah. They used encrypted and private communications, equipped themselves with a variety of weapons, donned combat and tactical gear, and were prepared to answer Rhodes' call to take up arms, reads the agreement between James and prosecutors. So he's basically confirming what we've talked about earlier. Should put ASMR news in parentheses. True. Yeah, look, now I'm getting AAA benefits. What? Okay. James acknowledged he and others collected firearms at hotels on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., and were ready to use them to prevent Biden from becoming president. James admitted that he was instructed, along with the other Oath Keepers, to be prepared if called upon to report to the White House grounds to secure the perimeter and use lethal force if necessary against anyone who tried to remove President Trump from the White House, including the National Guard or any other governmental actors. Yeah. One individual, unnamed in this agreement, messaged James on New Year's Eve of 2020, saying that they had friends not far from DC with a lot of weapons and ammo. So, yeah, they totally had planning beforehand, absolutely. This might be helpful as we have a shitload of quick reaction forces on standby with an arsenal. Yeah. James met with Rhodes in Washington, D.C. area in November of 2020. They attended multiple online meetings to organize and make plans for January 6th in the weeks leading up to the attack. Yeah. In December, Rhodes sent a message to an encrypted group chat that included James and said it'll be a bloody and desperate fight. We're gonna have to fight and that can't be avoided. Yeah, like, imagine. Imagine. The president, at the time, continuously spread this false notion that the election was going to be rigged. It was going to be rigged no matter what. The only acceptable outcome is Trump winning. And he was priming the pump. And I talked about this before. The election actually happened. I would say about a month and something before the election happened. I actually talked about it. It's like, this guy's continuing to prime the pump. This guy's dangerous. I think you and the majority report should send the 700 Club a map because Pat Robertson thinks going north in Ukraine is a shortcut to... Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I saw that segment. We watched it together. Complete delusion. Yeah, imagine fighting for Trump. One of the invitation-only Signal group chats was titled January 5-6 Op Intel Team. Another was titled DC Op January 6 of 21. Yeah, but, there was no coordination. It was a random act of... it's spontaneous. It was spontaneous. The Intel group chat was used by James and Rhodes to coordinate just before rioters breached the Capitol, with one member asking if those who pushed inside were actually patriots. Yeah, okay. Rhodes responded, apparently to confirm they were on the same side. Actual patriots, pissed off patriots. Yikes. Wearing a backpack, combat t-shirt, tactical gloves, Oathkeeper gear, James acknowledged that he and others unlawfully entered the Capitol just after 3 p.m., which he assaulted a D.C. police officer. He discussed with another rider as to whether to move forward before deciding to push into the Capitol Rotunda. After January 6, James and Rhodes took steps to conceal their identities and share additional firearms. At one point, James and Rhodes ordered him to help defend against his possible arrest. James told prosecutors that after a group of Oath Keepers met at an Olive Garden, what? Jesus Christ. Following the riot, he took them to a gas station where he had distributed thousands of dollars of firearms and he had been accumulating leading up to the January 6th to different members, including James himself. Rhodes, suddenly on the alert that he and others might be arrested for their role in the attack, also allegedly left his phone with a person from the group and departed with another member so law enforcement would have trouble tracking him. Rhodes also allegedly gave James a burner phone and told him that he should create a fake identity and home address and instructed him to turn off the phone anytime they spoke about the quote presidential election and next steps. Yeah, fancy. When you need to carb load before insurrection, defensive battles. Trafficking small arms is the one thing you can still do under the proverbial radar. Well, between states, it doesn't really raise red flags, I guess. I'm not sure about that actually, Dr. Dragonrider, because wouldn't it stem to reason that they would charge her too? Gay Variable, how's it going? Thank you for the lurk. Did they ever find out who planted the IEDs? Actually, I have no idea. To our knowledge, at this time, we have never had an update on that. James' statement of offense also implicates Kelly Sorrell, the self-described attorney for the Oath Keepers, at the time of the insurrection. While she has denied ever asking members to delete their messages, James revealed to the prosecutor a new message from an individual he understood to be an attorney for the Oath Keepers that stated, "Stuart, you need to delete any of your comments regarding who did what. You are under zero obligation to leave them up." Yeah. Okay. That's a massive leap in logic. Massive leap in logic. Ass off battalion are Nazis? Yes. Therefore, anyone arming Ukraine is arming Nazis? No. That's a leap in logic. You also just joined Twitch 11 hours ago. So... Oh, I don't? Okay. Cool. The Azov Battalion itself? Yes. No, he's not. Hold on, this is a good meme. Trump's border wall has been breached by smugglers over 3,000 times. Damn, look at that awesome wall. Look how effective it is. What did he say, over 90% effective? Damn. That's a good meme. Does that look like denazifying? What about this? Look at all the denazification that's going on here. Look at that. Oh, the report. Everybody's a Nazi. Gotcha. Right, all these Nazi hospitals and kindergartners and reporters that have nothing to do with Ukraine. They're just reporters. All of them. Look at the denazification that's going on over here. These Nazi oil fields. Look at that. More denazification. Absolute clown. Is this Sixth Sense meme I see? Yeah, I see Nazi people everywhere. I will never have sympathy for Nazis. Wait, is anybody asking? Hold on, chat. Did anybody say that you should have, like, Nazi sympathies? What? Has anybody said that here? Absolute clown. Alright, that's enough, buddy. Goodbye. Yeah, it's just 11-hour troll account. Hey, base of BJ. Like, if denazification is justification here, then when does... Yeah, exactly. I mean, Jesus. Do we really want an ideology to be an acceptable precedent for preemptive wars? Yeah, like, it's just an insane take, to be quite honest. Like, imagine having that mentality and accepting... Because this is just the regurgitation of, like, RT. This is, like, RT talking points. Yeah. No need to, indulge that any further. Yeah, in 20 minutes, Twitch is racist number 23. Right, and I love the username too. Twitch is racist. And why are you here? Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I don't think anybody's really denying that. At all. It's just that that is a very, very, very weird pretext to start bombing cities. You know? The maximum penalty for seditious conspiracy, 20 years in prison, a fine of $250,000, a 3-year lead supervised release, along with other fees and penalties. James' cooperation can be used in determining his sentencing, presiding judge Amit Mehta explained to the court. Yep. Yeah, like, the reality is, like, you have to really twist yourself into quite the pretzel to justify what's happening, right? Because you wouldn't justify this. We don't justify this when it happens here. When we go and, when we go and invade a country, or when we go and bomb a country, that's not acceptable. So why would we then say that this is acceptable? Every time there is a bombing in the Middle East, every time we supply weapons to the ongoing genocide in Yemen, every time that happens, we should be there protesting it. So why would we justify this? Yeah, I just love how all of a sudden Putin, the far-right authoritarian oligarch, is the savior against neo-Nazism. Ah, yes. Yeah, it's just a pathetic, like, excuse. It's not, no. Yes, Russia literally allows you to murder gay people and claim gay panic. Yep, truly the champion against neo-Nazism. Anyways, TLDR, this dude is going to pave the way to further prosecution and further evidence as to what really happened in January 6th. Oh yeah, that Russia, known defender of human rights. Dylan Burns was showing video of Russia arresting children who protest the invasion of some which are 10 years old. What? Jesus. I saw the one with the poor, old lady. My goodness. Anyways, sad to see that people are just so keen to accept that narrative. Alright, folks, we're getting close. We're getting close. Searching for methane leaks, scientists find ultra emitters. The fossil fuel industry is releasing millions of metric tons of methane gas in giant plumes during extraction and transportation of those fuels at high cost for climate, the society, and even the industry's pocketbooks. I'm not sure about that. Although methane emission... Hey, kitty. Come here. Come here, kitty. No, don't chew on my cables. Stop it. Come here. You can't come up from that way, kitty. That's my leg. Come on, kitty. Come on, kitty. Come on. There we go. Say hello. Say hello, everybody. Spurring up a storm. No? I just gotta make sure I keep the cable away from her. I don't know what a mog is. Aw, I love her too. You hear that, kitty? Chat loves you. Look at that. Hmm? The fossil fuel industry is releasing millions of metric tons of methane gas in giant plumes during extraction and transportation of fossil fuels at high cost for climate, society, and even the industry's pocketbooks. I'm not really interested in the industry's pocketbooks, to be quite frank. This is all due to fracking. Although methane emissions are relatively low compared to CO2, each ton has a whopping 30 to 80 times the relative warming potential depending on the timescale of interest. On the plus side, methane has a much shorter atmospheric lifetime, about 9 years, but then it becomes CO2. So reining in emissions as soon as possible represents one of the better bets for lowering temperature in the coming decades. But to date, methods for detecting methane emissions have been limited, and it has been challenging to find, measure, and curtail all anthropogenic sources. A recent study describes how researchers used a European Union satellite to carry out global survey of unusually large methane plumes, finding 18,000 ultra emitters during the time frame of 2019 and 2020. 2/3 of these emitters were all connected to the oil and gas industry. Surprise, surprise! And just 3 countries, including the US, were responsible for the majority of the problem. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Eliminating these leaks could prevent about 0.005% of global warming over the next 10 to 30 years, potentially saving society billions of dollars in climate-related costs, not to mention other externalities such as health. Many such leaks are due to avoidable issues like maintenance practice and equipment failure, a particularly egregious way to heat up the planet. A particularly egregious way to heat up the planet would be to continue to perpetuate this notion that nothing's happening. Especially all of the misinformation coming from these industries. Past research has shown that 1/3 of anthropogenic methane comes from the fossil fuel industry. Damn. However, due to the lack of required reporting for unintentional or even intentional during routine maintenance, methane leaks, this figure largely underestimates actual emissions. Yeah. I posted something of interest. Has the oligarchs hiding in the UK all of a sudden going on a PR drive? Yeah, I heard something about that. Yes. I saw this. I've decided to sell the the club and go and send that to the victims of Ukraine. That's a good meme. I saw that another oligarch's super yacht was seized as well. Although these leaks account... I'm glad that we're starting to reconcile the atmospheric data sets and what we report, because we cannot continue to be blind and use these numbers that we know are completely underestimating the truth, said Dr. Thomas Laveau. It's really hard to imagine that some policymakers are working with numbers that are completely bogus. Yeah, and those numbers are brought to you by the fossil fuel industry. Although these leaks account for only 8 to 12% of the industry's total methane emissions, every opportunity to save even a fraction of a degree is still important for reaching climate targets. But these leaks are hard to track, and weeks-long plane surveys, such as those used to monitor methane emissions from California landfills, won't work for global emissions. Ow. PD. As a result, researchers have turned to tools such as the European Space Agency's Sentinel-5P satellite and onboard tropospheric monitoring instrument. Using data collected by these instruments, the team systematically searched for methane releases for more than 25 tons per hour. Critically, the monitoring provided daily snapshots that allow researchers to estimate how much total methane was being lost during these events. Yikes. Initially, we were quite disappointed because we discovered that the sensitivity of our system was pretty low, 25 tons an hour, but then we couldn't believe how many of these giant blooms we discovered. If you don't have a satellite covering the world every day, you might not even see many of them, and that's how we've been able to avoid documentation, because we didn't have this global matrix solution before. Stop it. Kitty. Okay. The data set also picked up ultra emitters from coal, agriculture, and waste management. 33% of total detections. Jesus. But the majority came from oil and gas production or transmission facilities. Unsurprisingly, these were mostly in some of the largest fossil fuel basins around the world: Turkmenistan, Russia, the US, Iran, Kazakhstan, and Algeria. In total, these leaks released 80 million metric tons of methane per year. Of this, Turkmenistan and Russia were responsible for close to 1 million metric tons per year, while the US ranked third, and with a little under 0.5 million metric tons per year. Some good memes there. Hey, Echo Rester Dragon, how's it going? In addition to locating these ultra emitters, researchers used 3 mitigation analyses to calculate the cost and potential savings of preventing these emissions. The analysis used a material from the International Energy Association Methane Tracker 2021, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and the Global Non-CO2 Greenhouse Gas Emission Projections and Mitigation 2015 to 2020, and the International Institute of Applied System Analysis. Across nearly all scenarios, the results showed that significant financial savings on the order of $200 million per year for Turkmenistan, $100 million for Russia and the US. You could imagine why, for example, in the middle of Siberia, you could get a minimal investment in terms of staff, but when we found ultra emitters in non-remote parts of the US like Pennsylvania and Oklahoma, we were shocked. Why haven't they fixed these earlier? Is it the lack of staff? Or there's something a mystery that needs a longer conversation with experts in the field? It turns out they probably just don't want to spend the money, to be quite honest. You could imagine, for example, beyond the financial gains, the authors also looked at the societal benefits of avoiding these emissions. According to the Global Methane Assessment, each ton of methane causes $4,400 US dollars in damage to climate damage to human health, labor productivity, crop yields, and other impacts. Using that figure, authors project societal savings of over $6 billion for Turkmenistan, $4 billion for Russia, $1.6 billion in the US. Because Tropome can only detect plumes larger than 25 tons per hour, there are still many smaller leaks that researchers haven't measured yet, particularly in the US Permian Basin, which produces 10% of US natural gas but was excluded due to the high density of small and medium emitters. But the aggregate of all that might be significant. To address this, several satellite programs are in development to make high-resolution worldwide surveys in the near future. We're still missing so many emissions, and we're nowhere close to a real effective surveillance program, but future global views will help see if policies are effective and we can keep the industry accountable. That's a good meme. The industry is the one that's making the policies, my friends. We also know that preventing these leaks is totally doable, and we have great data from data sets from places like Saudi Arabia, where we have found very few leaks. Some countries already able to do a very good job. All right, folks. We continue our journey. And the last section of the Ipcc press conference for Working Group 2.
There will be, in that case, abrupt adaptation, the limits, which then expose the local population to extreme events such as intensive flooding and so forth. So that shows the challenges of combining information from climate projections in that aspect, sea level rise projections, and the local action to be taken to protect ecosystems and the population and develop an integrated approach. This also argues to bridge between silos. So from a more general and global perspective, to just do climate mitigation, as is currently in the focus of many developed countries, reducing emissions, and not also consider the needs to protect nature and its capacity to enhance carbon storage, that would also and can also lead to maladaptation strategies and potentially to the loss of the capacity of ecosystems to help mitigation. Thank you.
I think a very important point to add to what Hans has just said is, I think the overall global message that's coming out of the Ipcc in this assessment cycle is that the world we live in today is not going to be the world we live in 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years from now. And
That's
therefore, we
true.
have to be much more vigilant about our actions. And so certainly something that may increase our adaptive capacity today, may be seen as a good adaptation option today, may not be so 10 years from now or 20 years from now. And that really speaks to the fact that we need processes that allow us to monitor and evaluate the impacts of our adaptation interventions in a variety of sectors across various elements and scales of our society.
Yeah.
That really speaks to a new partnership, again, between policy and science to enable that monitoring and evaluation. But probably most importantly, again, speaks to a new social compact that sees the most vulnerable groups being drawn to the table, because our report very clearly indicates that the groups most impacted by maladaptation are the vulnerable societies around the world, the vulnerable communities, those who live in informal settlements, those who live in vulnerable areas. And it's really critical, if we are to monitor and evaluate, not only to take a scientific perspective on the impacts of our interventions, but also to hear from the grassroots, from the people who are experiencing the impacts of these interventions, to determine whether they're having the effect that is desired, or in fact, if they are becoming maladaptation. So again, it speaks to the fact that we can't have a linear approach to these problems. We need to be talking to everyone, to have them around the table, and to be using all of our strengths to take the world forward.
Thank you very much. We have about 15 minutes left. So next question again for Dr. Roberts. What is the role of agriculture production on the scenario presented by the report? Are South American crops at the risk?
Yes.
So obviously, agricultural production is a very important concern to Working Group 2, because that links back to well-being and livelihoods and economies. What we do indicate that, given the current impacts that we're seeing from climate change in the here and now, as we've indicated before, we're already experiencing acute food and water shortages in places like Central and South America, Asia, the small island states. And so this is a real problem.
We've gone over that as well. We've gone over several stories about how these crop failures, which are being driven by climate change, have forced people to leave. I mean, this has been happening for years now at this point.
Now, what we know is that problem is going to escalate again in places like Central and South America. If we look at 2 degrees of global warming, we know that areas that are currently growing staple crops will not be able to grow those at the same level of efficiency and effectiveness. And so there are significant challenges coming.
And I keep harping on this point, but I mean, what is going to happen when folks can't grow food, or we can't have access to food in the ways that we normally do? What happens as water becomes more and more scarce? What happens when we've got folks who have nothing else and cause massive societal unrest? Because, well, the lack of food, the lack of water and resources does inevitably pave the way for conflict as well. It's not just a matter of, certain areas are going to some areas are just going to starve. That's not how it works. That's just not viewing the full scale of how serious it could be.
Areas like South America, Africa, Asia, in terms of overall food production.
Thank you very much. Next question is more on the process, and I'll direct it to the Secretary of the Ipcc. Can you please elaborate on how the crisis in Ukraine has affected the last week's climate negotiations between countries? How do you look at publishing this report during this crisis?
For this question, the IPCC session are a closed session. They are closed session. They are designated in this way to allow frank and transparent discussion between the government and scientists. Because of this closed nature of this approval session, we are not discussing or paying attention to the presence, the attendance, or any participants for delegation. This is something is closed. And yes, of course, we are keeping on track the list of the participants, and we will provide the whole list of the participants in the report of this plenary session.
Thank you very much. Next question is from the Washington Post, and it's for both co-chairs. You have spoken about the numerous mitigation and technology options that are already available to society, and how political will is the major barrier to transformation.
True.
What does the Working Group 2 report tell us about how to build the political will that is necessary for change? Dr. Roberts and then Dr. Putner.
Thank you for that important question. And in fact, this is not a new message for the IPCC. That message was made very clear in the special report of 1.5 degrees Celsius, that in fact it's societal and political will, which is the major challenge in moving forward towards a more resilient and sustainable present and future for everyone around the world. What we look at in terms of Working Group 2 is how that support for change is built. So we speak to the need for institutions that are inclusive, that are well-funded. We speak to the need for participation in decision-making, so welcoming groups to the table, particularly the vulnerable, as I've indicated before. We speak to the need for various levels of government to interact with one another, to create the kind of environment that facilitates.
What? You mean for a functioning democratic society, you need transparency, inclusivity, and strong institutions that do what they're supposed to, that act as they're supposed to? No way. Damn. How does he do it, chat?
It's change. So, for example, national government creating the policy framework for local government to act, but also the appropriate flow of financial resources to enable that. But ultimately, political and societal will is determined by what each of us as individuals prioritize as important in our lives. So over and above the structural changes that are needed in terms of government cooperation, flow of finance, it's important that we ourselves educate ourselves about the challenges we face and make those priorities known more broadly in society and to our leadership in order to encourage the political will that's necessary to take the bold and rapid action required in this decade.
Yeah, thank you. And
I mean, that's part of it.
The answer that Deborah has given, I think in the context of climate resilient development, the cross-sectoral collaboration in governance and between institutions is an important element that can enable stronger action and also can provide motivation to take action, being aware of problems in other sectors where one's own sector can possibly contribute. And we have developed a picture in this report how such integration and cross-sector collaboration can happen. Also, the view of the international, not just of the local and vulnerable elements in one's own society could provide motivation, but also looking at the international situation where we clearly lay out that multinational and international collaboration is an essential element in making a progress in this climate arena. This also concerns a global move to, for example, remove subsidies from fossil fuels. And the current crisis could actually lead, and this is already entering the political discussion in my own country, could actually lead to the avoidance of dependencies on the suppliers of fossil fuels in situations of political instability, and supporting the establishment of renewables and enhancing their fraction in energy provision could increase the independence in that sense.
Thank you.
So there are motivations that come from various sides, but the most important pillar certainly is and has been the mobilization of the young generation that we have seen somewhat surprisingly, but it was a very pleasant surprise after the release of the 1.5 report, where the taking up the crucial information on climate change and its future challenges by the young generation and their concern about the future is and has been a very strong lever for political shifts that we have seen in some countries, including my own. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. The next question is for the IPCC Chair, Dr. Lee and Dr. Portner. The results of the Working Group 2 analysis are not so surprising, since it is natural to believe that continued climate change brings more serious impacts on ecosystems and damages and losses. So what is, in your view, the real scientific value of the report and its impact on policies? Dr. Lee.
Thank you very much. It's a very important questions, and I believe Hans will give a more detailed answer to this. But overall, this study, this assessment, for the first time, assesses in very detail the impact of a temporary overshoot. And the report clearly indicates that there will be some impacts that will be irreversible, even if the temperature will return to 1.5 at the end of the century. And that is one of the major findings of this report, as well as this report, as already mentioned, identifies 127 key risks, and then shows how those key risks change along the temperature gradient changes. And these are quite a new messages that this report can deliver compared to our last reports. Hans?
Thank you very much, Osong, and thanks a lot for this important question. Clearly, this report, if you just see it as a linear extrapolation of the last report on impacts and risks, the information may not be so surprising, although certainly the scientific basis for extrapolating is very solid and is also very important in terms of the possibilities and progress made in terms of attributing these impacts, for example, due to extreme events to human activities. I think there the Working Group 1 report and the Working Group 2 report come together closely. Another advance that our report offers is really a systems understanding, an integrative understanding how the different lines of evidence come together.
Nice.
There was one figure in that slide presentation which was in rather straightforward ways bringing forward the interactions between the human systems, the climate systems, and biodiversity providing ecosystem services, and how human society currently is causing the imbalance by causing climate change through greenhouse gas emissions and thereby the impact feedbacks on the natural and the human systems. By shifting that balance in interactions, and from a systems point of view, this emerges as an underpinning framework for the concept of climate resilient development, which was already there, yes, during the 5th assessment report, but is much more comprehensively developed in our present report. It talks about the resilience for ecosystems as well as the resilience for human systems. And it shows that in that argumentation, that going for a combination of human health, ecosystem health, and finally at the highest complexity level, planetary health, is actually giving us hope for the future and should provide a vision
In
and
the
an
best case
orientation
scenario, yes.
for concerted actions across the globe.
Thank you very much.
But how do these climate scientists know what they're talking about if climate is everything?
We will take just another 2 questions given the time. The first one is from News First in Sri Lanka. Question is for Dr. Roberts. What are the IPCC's recommendations in terms of in calculating the local, I guess including the local and indigenous knowledge to find more effective solutions to tackle climate change?
Thank you so much. And that's such an important question, because certainly one of the new elements of this particular assessment is a much stronger focus on indigenous communities, local knowledge, traditional knowledge, as a way of understanding the world that we live in. And so there's a very strong pointer to the fact that where we engage with indigenous communities and peoples, where we consider local knowledge, that really empowers us not only to frame the questions we're asking in a more relevant way, but to develop answers that are more comprehensive, that are more inclusive, and allows us to better understand the kind of response options we have available to us. So this, I think, is an exciting move for the scientific community, acknowledging that there are many forms of and ways of knowing the world, that there are many knowledges in the world. And so we've tried very strongly to bring forward the perspectives of indigenous communities, bring forward the input of local knowledge in informing the kind of solution options that are available. But the bottom line, there is no doubt that indigenous knowledge and local knowledge is critical to understanding the world, critical to understanding the way we respond to the climate change challenge, and critical to finding solutions. And therefore, these communities absolutely must be at the table when we're talking about the climate change response, and they must be at the table when we're deciding what action we take.
Thank you very much. And the last question is from the Financial Times for both co-chairs. So again, I'll be looking for short answers there. We are already at 1:30. Could you explain why the phrasing in the summary for policymakers is losses and damages rather than loss and damage, which is used in the underlying literature and full report? And if that is different to the language in the summary for policymakers, why it is different? Dr. Portner and then Dr. Roberts.
Damn.
Thanks a lot for this important question.
That's a good one.
The content of our report and the summary for policymakers is very close to political interest and to political debate. And we build on the information in the scientific literature without really crossing the line into the policy arena, without really developing policy prescriptive language or wanting to get entangled in political debates between the global north and the global south, or considering country interests. That is why we are developing a more policy neutral language and using the important information on losses and damages as they result from impacts and also from risk projections for the future in a more policy neutral way. And to make this clear, we have used the wording that the reporters have rightly observed, and it helps us to bring this into a more policy neutral but very policy relevant language. That is.
I disagree with this. I think that as a body, as a collective body, I think that the scientific community, the climate scientific community, needs to be a bit more harder on the prescriptive solutions that they can provide to Congress or to the government of wherever country. As directly as possible. I think that I understand why, but I think that this was one of the problems we saw when in the movie Don't Look Up. I highly recommend you watch that movie.
Is my take on this, and about to add.
I think it's a very important term because it allows us to understand the full spectrum of the challenge that we face. So we use the term losses and damages really to speak to adverse impacts, both in the present, but also potential future risks. But it talks to a scenario where we can draw forward not only economic impacts, but non-economic impacts, so losses and damages. So it gives us a sense of there's adaptation, but there are potential scenarios, as we've indicated, where we may have maladaptation, where adaptation may not be effective, it may not be fast enough or at scale, and then we have to deal with the resultant losses and damages. But that phrasing, as I say, allows us not only to think about the loss of infrastructure, the loss of people's lives, but the non-economic losses that may come from loss of culture, loss of language, loss of livelihoods, losses of places where people live. So it allows us to adopt a more comprehensive view of the challenges that we have to face as society.
True.
Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of today's press conference. Let me just say thank you to all of the representatives of the media who have been with us today. We have answered as many questions as possible. There are many, many more questions, and we will be answering them in the hours, days, and weeks to come. I would like to also thank all of the panelists at today's press conference and for their time and dedication and providing substantive answers to the questions that were posed to them. I would also like to stress to the representatives of the media that the Working Group 3 report, which is looking into the mitigation of the climate change, is scheduled to be released in early April. We will be communicating with you soon about that. In the meantime,
next month.
Thank you all. Take care and see you soon.
Next month. $37 pages. What? Not bad at all. Sorry, my doomer instinct has been kicking really hard. It's understandable. Alright, so we might go over this summary. For policymakers, as it doesn't, from what I understand from what they were saying, it doesn't exactly have policy prescriptions, but it is designed to give a concise summary to policymakers so that they can go ahead and use this information to make policy based on this data. Obviously, I'm not too confident on the whole political will part, but nonetheless, they provided that information, which I believe we should go over as we continue to cover this. And next month, the Working Group 3 will be released. You know what changes in climate? Nuclear war. True, but I don't have... I'm not of the mindset that that's going to happen. It is less likely than not. It is less likely than not. Yeah, I haven't seen any scientists recommend that either. We're already in a Cold War. I don't know what that means. Maybe. Alright, folks. We did it. We went through the entirety of the press conference. Up next, as we continue to cover this next week, we will go over the policymaker summary. Folks, before we head out, if you guys enjoy the content, don't forget to hit that follow button. It really does help us out. We've just crossed over the 1,800 follower count, which I appreciate so much. You guys have just been absolutely supportive. Thank you guys so much. We've crossed over the 1,800 follow count. Thank you guys. You get also 5 free emotes, of one of them being Vaquita the cat, which was here with us earlier. Actually, I think she's still here somewhere. I appreciate all the new follows. I appreciate all the support, all the subscriptions, all the raids that have been just been phenomenal. Thank you. You guys are what really makes us grow. Also, don't forget to head on over to our YouTube channel and just kind of hit that red button, subscribe, you know, hit the red subscribe button. It really does only take 5 seconds. If you guys want to know what's going on with the channel, hit up the Discord. Come on, kitty, you want to say goodbye? Come on, Vaquita. Come on. I've got like a minute to do this. Come on. Come on, kitty. Come on. Come on, Vaquita. Come here. It's okay. Ah, she doesn't want to. Good stuff today. See you around on Catterday. Yes. Join us noon Eastern time for Saturday Catterday. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. Love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya! Alright, folks. You have a good one. Thank you so much, Dustin. We're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. See ya.